Alrighty, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark, and welcome back to my channel. We usually talk about immigration and investment, and today our topic is Georgia, the country, of course. Specifically, the question: is it going to join European Union? This is a very important question because I usually promote the country to you in a way that you should buy real estate here, maybe move here to do business because the country offers 1% tax on a lot of types of online income and so on. It's a really nice, beautiful, and affordable country to live in. Now, of course, this country is also growing. It's getting more expensive year by year. Or, for example, it's been 11.5% growth in prices in just last year. But I mean, everything's growing in price, so I guess it's okay. Point is, if it does join European Union, then the price will grow significantly. Well, if you just look at the previous accessions of other countries to EU, that means a lot of new growth, a lot of new possibilities. So the country is not yet obviously in the union, but they want to be. Today we'll try to understand, is it going to join? I'll try to give you a probability, the likelihood of the country joining the EU, because even though they wanted to join a lot, right now there's certain, talks. Anyway, I have 5 different points I'll share with you. You can just choose the specific point in the timeline. And if you're interested more about the prices of real estate, then it will be something like number 4. You can click on that. But anyway, let's go with the first question. What does EU candidate status actually mean? Now, that's the status Georgia has since December 2023. It has officially become EU candidate. Now, that doesn't mean anything, actually, really. It means that European Commission acknowledges the fact that the country wants to join, and they give specific, more like a to-do list for the country which they need to fulfill before they can actually be considered. It's not a guarantee. And but to-do list, I mean, of course, that country needs to get itself in order. Now, for example, if you take Ukraine, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ukraine is also on that list, but they have a lot of corruption. Each country has their own problems. But if you take Ukraine, it will be a lot of corruption in the government and between officials, police, and so on and so on. Of course, that's unacceptable for a country which wants to be in EU. So those are the things they are trying to fix. Of course, also territorial questions play a big role, but not about that today. Let's move on, okay? So I'll give you examples of countries which have been a candidate for a while. Well, for example, Turkey. Turkey has been a candidate to EU since 1999, and it still is not a member, as you know. That's why I don't get your hopes high about Georgia. It might not become a European country, but I still have my reasons to believe that it's still a really beautiful, nice place to live and invest in. I'll tell you why later, okay? A few more countries: North Macedonia, Albania, Serbia. All of these countries are candidates, have been for years, but it doesn't look like they're going to become member states anytime soon. And for Georgia specifically, negotiations are frozen until 2028. That's the official timeline. And let me rephrase it: frozen by Georgian government until 2028, and the Brussels on their part also somehow, maybe actually they did it first, and then Georgians did it as a retaliation, kind of like to pretend it's our own pace. But the point is, the Brussels gave their own conditions, like a to-do list for the country, which they need to fulfill, as I told you earlier, before they can join. And Georgia has their own questions. If you look at the map of Georgia, you'll see that first 2 lands of Georgia are a little bit in the gray area. I don't want to get into that. If you're Georgian, maybe you can let me know in the comments more specifically what exactly is happening about that. But it's a gray area. So that's something which needs to be fixed, because the gray area means there could be some armed conflicts because of that and so on. You know what I mean, right? So we don't want a gray area. Okay, second question. Why delay happened until 2028? You might be surprised. There's a huge support. Pretty much everyone, about 90% of the population, is supporting joining to EU, but it's just not happening. Okay, current government has mixed feelings. And if you've been tracking the news, there's been, in January of 2025, in December 2024, there's been a lot of protests in Tbilisi, the capital, because weirdly, the government, which is, at least it's called pro-Russian locally. I honestly don't know exactly what makes it pro-Russian, and I'm not sure exactly what makes it bad being pro-Russian, because objectively, there are also good ways of the government being pro-Russian. For example, prices, the goods, the exchange, the oil and everything. There's a number of things which are not so bad. But negatives, maybe more of a stronger totalitarian rule. Now, of course, That's a trade-off. Okay, don't want to get into that, but as that's your choice, right? Lower prices, but more freedom. I mean, less freedom, better prices. Worse prices, less freedom. You get my point, right? Anyway, maybe let me know in the comments. Maybe I am wrong about this one, but of course, most people in Georgia do want to be in European Union, so well, probably the country should be. The government does not have the same feeling. Weirdly, the government which was chosen, and I don't want to question legitimacy or anything like that, but just something to think about. A lot of people, if you just ask them on the street, on the spot, of course they want to be in EU. The government does not reflect that. That's something questionable, but anyway, the current government is still very good. Basically, if you just look at the guy, he makes a very solid, strong, competent impression. That's what I can say. Again, I don't want to go deep into politics, so I don't even have a particular view in the politics, so please don't try to attack me for that. Okay, moving on. The fact of the matter, delayed until 2028 by the Brussels and by the Georgian government. Moving on. Question number 3 for today. Why Georgia could join EU one day? So let's just hypothetically think. Again, point number 1, 90% of population is voting for EU joining. And a lot of people, especially younger ones, of course, they are very much pro-European. The older people of Georgia, they are a bit more, well, first they speak Russian, they are more traditional. And European Union does not really exactly have this traditional values right now. Georgia is more traditional than a typical Western European country. And that's why older population of Georgia is not exactly voting for joining EU. That I know for sure. And, well, yeah, something to think about. I want to say that proportionally, Georgian population is not old, but it's older than typical. A lot of youngsters are leaving the country to go to European Union, to United States, to work elsewhere, because local salaries are still not very good. And not a lot of industries to work in as well. A lot of Georgians also go to Russia, by the way, to work there, because the industry development is much higher, of course. But that could change, because the country, even though cannot physically have a lot of development going on because it's not a big country, they're really investing in the real estate, casino, tourism, business, and so on and so on. So they really do a good job. They also want to become a hub in a way that you have flights all over the place. From Georgia, you can fly all over Europe, United Kingdom. There's a lot of beautiful flights, easy and affordable, you can do out of Georgia. Also, one more reason, of course, it's the location, a very strategic location of Georgia. Georgia is a bridge between Europe and Asia. And by bridge, I mean logistical bridge. It's very big on logistics, especially later years when the war between Russia and Ukraine started, sanctions happened and everything. So a lot of goods and oil and other things go through Georgia. That makes it really interesting for not just Russia, but also to China and, of course, European Union. And I guess it's in the interest of European Union to keep Georgia under its influence. But, when I say that, I cringe a little bit, because for us, normal people, it doesn't do anything, doesn't mean anything for us specifically. What we need to try to do is to find the best place to live for us. I always say that there's no perfect country to live, and maybe you should not base your whole strategy of relocation just based on one country. My suggestion, 2 countries. Some people do even 3. Me personally, I have 2 countries. I relocate between Thailand and Georgia. Those are 2 beautiful combinations. Low season in Georgia, then to low season in Thailand. Perfect, beautiful. Of course, you can make your combination, but I don't think one country can match all the boxes for you, okay? Let's move on. Maybe one more reason that it could happen is, well, pretty much it, of course. The influence, I told you about everything I wanted. Okay, let's talk about why it might not happen. Of course, Georgia is maybe a little bit unstable in a way that, as I told you, there've been a lot of protests, and this disconnect between the government, which is not exactly reflecting a lot of younger people's views on the question. Younger people maybe are just emotional. They don't want to be close to Russia. They hate it. They want to go to Europe. But I'm sure that the current government is not so horrible as they say. It's just basically looking at the data, the information, the numbers, and they need to try to balance things out and make it good, not just move to Europe and that's it, to bring the euro currency, to bring the euro taxes and everything, because I have a feeling the transition can be rough and might not bring this economic prosperity immediately to the country. I even think it might crush it if you make it too soon. That's why they try to postpone it and make it more gradually. Also, European Union has their own issues. As I told you before, they do have this sort of EU growth fatigue. These other countries, everyone wants to join EU. They kind of work on that, and there are also internal immigration problems in European Union. So this is not number one on their agenda to think and try to join other countries. Moreover, Georgia, because that will be a complicated country to join. Proximity to Russia and everything. What if something happens and that can drag European Union into something they don't want to be dragged into? That's a big one, right? Okay, let's talk about what happens to real estate of Georgia. Joins, of course, I guess you can guess this one. This will go up. Basically, if you look at the previous countries joining EU, about 10 to 15% growth on the real estate market pretty much overnight. There's a lot more people coming in. But one thing which people, well, look, what I'm trying to say, I do have a lot of clients out of Germany. And for many Germans, even though they do have direct flights to Georgia, many of them don't want to go there, even like tourists, because Georgia is they think it's dangerous. They think it's Russia's ally, it's dangerous. It's, of course, laughable. If you come to Georgia and just look around, see the people, see the nature and everything, it's laughable because Georgia is way safer than most big cities in Germany. It's just a fact. I mean, open YouTube, you'll find a lot of guys going to downtown Berlin, downtown Frankfurt. There's literal ghettos right in the center, in the middle of German cities right now. Georgia is a beautiful and safe place. But weirdly, some people in Europe think otherwise. That's just, I guess they need to come and see for themselves. Really, it's weird, but that's what I'm saying. The sentiment is like that. Of course, even without joining the EU, there's been about 11.5% growth just year over year for the property here in Georgia. So that's okay. It's going pretty good. Yeah, if Georgia joins EU, regulations will definitely tighten. And the good thing, if you buy something now, be it land or apartments, and by the way, if you need consultation on that, I can offer that. Just click the link below. I definitely help people to come to Georgia and buy stuff, and just basically I can answer all your questions. So if you buy land now, if you buy apartments now, you can do it easily. You just need a passport and 15 minutes of your time to buy an apartment here right now. It will be a bit longer than that, but it will increase your safety as well when a country joins EU. There'll be more regulations, but it'll be safer. But the good thing, if you already own something, well, that's it. You come in already owning something into the European Union. And again, that might not happen. Even 2030 is the current projection for the joining of EU. It's probably it's the most optimistic projection there is. If something happens, it might happen in 2030, 2035, or later. But again, I understand that maybe that's a good timeline for you. Why not? You got time right now to think. Maybe you want to sell some things in your country. Even if Georgia does not join the EU, there's a lot of people coming in here anyway. Let's say, for example, Iranians. Well, a lot of people in Iran have money, but maybe they want a little bit more freedom. And Georgia is definitely more free than Iran. And there's no sanctions on Georgia at all, or almost nothing. There's certain things we need to consider, but basically Georgia is a free country. You can do whatever you want. You can own land. So yeah, a lot of people come to Georgia, even if it's not going to be a European member. Well, will prices drop if Georgia won't join European Union? No, they're not going to drop, of course. They might cool off. But you need to understand, there's a huge momentum of a lot of people from a lot of different countries coming into Georgia, buying real estate and land for their own reasons. And reason of joining EU right now is like number 37. No one thinks about it. It might happen, it might not, but that's not something on people's radar. But if it does happen, of course, it'll be a very solid bonus for the prices of real estate. Yeah. If it doesn't, there will still be growth. There's a number of other countries, not so stable, not so free, from where people want to come to Georgia. I mean, I've met people from Africa, from African different, also like Benin, for example, an African country, or this other one, North African country, I forgot the name of it, but I literally met people from African countries coming into Georgia to buy real estate to study. I met a woman, her son was studying at Billy's University. Yeah, a lot of people come to Georgia because it's a free country, it's not so expensive, and you can get access to really good quality of medicine, education, life, prices, and so on. It's still a beautiful place. And that's about it. Yeah, so let's draw the line and just give you the general information. Today, foreigners can still buy very easily land and property in Georgia. It's still a very solid relocation destination, even if it does not become a EU member. If it does become an EU member, it's a solid bonus, but, you know, my opinion, doesn't have to be the most important consideration. And I always tell you, there's no perfect country, but you can make yourself a perfect or close to perfect portfolio of passports and residences. That's what I'm trying to do for myself. That's what I try to do for my clients. If you need any help with immigration or permanent residences, anyway, that's what I do. You can talk to me. Link is below. I'm not trying to advertise too much, but just let you know. Portfolio of residences and passports, that's what you need. Let me know if you have questions about Georgia below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Have a gorgeous, beautiful day. Bye bye.